Every year, traffic crashes claim more lives than any other disease or epidemic in the United States. Each day, lives are changed forever from a fatal or serious injury crash. We forget sometimes that behind each number is a face. Behind each cold statistic is a community that has changed forever. In this video, we are going to look back at lives that have been affected by crashes, but we are also going to look forward and consider the changes we can make to prevent crashes and reach a final destination of zero deaths.
Well, I think it's important for parents not only to tell their children, hey, do this, but also set that good example. And one experience stands out in my mind. I stopped a young man and his mom one afternoon. The young man was driving, and he had rolled through a stop sign. I walked up there, he was not wearing a seatbelt. I ended up giving him a warning for the initial traffic violation, but giving seatbelt tickets is something we don't have a lot of discretion on. So if you're not wearing your seatbelt, you're going to get that citation. I had talked with him and his mom for a good while, and I know we had a couple of laughs. It was a very lighthearted stop, and then they went on their way. About 10 days later, that young man was driving by himself, and he was involved in a car crash, and he rolled his vehicle down an embankment, and he didn't have a seatbelt on, and he was killed. I did not work that crash, but I contacted the officer that did, and I asked, would it have made a significant difference had he had a seatbelt on? And he said it would have. He would have lived through this crash had he had a seatbelt on. I think if any of us would have known that would have happened in the future, we would have had a much more serious discussion about it.
You see people that don't use safety devices, and whether that's seatbelts or helmets, they don't make good decisions. They drink too much and decide to drive, or they drive way too fast for the conditions. They might be distracted. That's certainly a popular thing now. Is that from a phone, or is that from other people in the car? There are certainly common themes, and that's, the greatest thing would be for us to be able to prevent ourselves out of a job, but we know that's not going to happen. So auto crashes can really generate any kind of injury that you can think of. We will see mild concussions, just like you hear from football players. We will see serious brain injuries where folks maybe never wake up again. You'd like to think that a lot of the car crashes are just a fender bender, something you see in a little fleeting story at the beginning of the news. But reality is that a lot of these crashes will result in permanent disability, if not death. And anybody that's been involved in treating a patient like that, or has a family or a friend, that had a fatal injury because of a car crash, stuff you can't take back. So there's still nights where I'll go home and hug my kids. Not because I miss them, but because I just talked about somebody their age that was fatally injured.
Paige was a wonderful child. I say that as objectively as I can. She cared very much about other people. Very kind young lady, and very social as well. She ended up applying and getting accepted to the School of Journalism here at Mizzou, which she was very much looking forward to. I was accustomed to calling my son and daughter every day about 3:30, 3:45, as a single parent to, kind of catch up on what the day's activities were, what the plans were for the evening, who had homework, who had to work, who had plans with friends or sports or anything of that nature. She was apparently trying to get to her phone, went off the right-hand side of the road, started down into a ditch, clipped a mailbox, overcorrected across Route K, and started to go off that side, and then overcorrected again into the path of an oncoming car, which crashed into the side of her car. No doubt in my mind that crash happened at the time I was trying to call Paige. They say you'll never be the same, and you will never be the same. It's just hugely profound. When you lose a child, you never get over it. There's any given time of day when you're visited by the pain. I had the family, the relationship, and everything that one could put up and say, it could not happen to this family, but it does. That's a silly, naive thought that it can't happen to you.
Didn't really think a lot of drinking and driving just because people in our area do it a lot. It's what you do on the weekends. You go out and you road trip with your friends. And so drinking and driving never seemed like a big deal to me. We were all drinking and just having fun, not really thinking anything of it. I decided it would be fun to go swimming at the lake on my farm. So we loaded up in my boyfriend's truck. We came up my gravel road and we turned onto the highway, and we made it about a fourth of a mile before we missed the first corner and went off the other side of the road and rolled. They don't really know how many times, but rolled a couple times. We were ejected. None of us were wearing seatbelts. I went through the windshield. You know, I just had a normal life, but it wasn't like I was, you know, racing my car everywhere or anything like that. I just made a mistake one night and got in a vehicle where we were all drinking, and I didn't wear my seatbelt, and it changed my life forever. The worst part to me about the crash was probably worrying about the effect it had on my family and my friends and my boyfriend. I wasn't really worried about myself because I knew I could handle it. I was more worried about the emotional trauma that they were going through and the stress it was putting on them to take care of me. They had to do a lot to take care of me. Wake up every 2 hours to turn me at night so I didn't get a pressure sore, get me dressed. It was messing with their jobs, messing with their lives, and definitely messing with their emotions. You have no idea what your actions can do to the people that you love.
I've been with the Columbia Fire Department for 12 years. I've been in emergency services for about 30 years. Probably the worst part about dealing with these injuries is the long-term effects that they're going to have. We're trained to deal with these folks. We see them on a short-term basis, but we know that some of these injuries are going to be debilitating. It's going to be something they're going to have to deal with for the rest of their life. Driver inattentiveness is a big deal. It's a big issue for us. We've been on scenes, water rescue scenes, where the roadway's been closed. We're working a water rescue with fire trucks and personnel out at the water's edge, and people drive past us into the water. When we're on the side of the highway, we don't have anything to protect us in our workspace. Our workspace is an interstate highway, a road. All we have are traffic cones and safety vests, really, to protect us from a 4,000-pound automobile driving down the road next to us. Probably the worst part of dealing with many of these crash scenes is that they're preventable. They don't have to happen. We go to a number of accidents or a number of crashes that are non-injury, no one's hurt, but there's a secondary accident because someone wasn't paying attention, and they either crash into our apparatus or our people or other vehicles, resulting in a completely unnecessary crash.
My crash was on March 28th, 2009. I was on my way home for my cousin's wedding. The crash happened at about 11:20 at night. It was snowing. It was the last snowstorm in March. And honestly, I don't remember it. The last thing I remember is I caught the bouquet at the wedding, and that's it. I don't remember anything past it. I've gradually remembered more, but for the most part, it's all was a blur. I don't remember leaving my cousin's wedding, nothing. I was going northbound on 21, and he was going southbound. He was 7.26 feet in my lane, and the lanes are 10 feet wide. He was traveling 79 miles per hour, and I was traveling 21. The speed limit's 55, but I'm not familiar with the roads, and with it being nighttime and snowing, I was taking extra precaution. He drove up onto my hood. Once he hit the top of my hood, he flipped over. They said there was a large amount of alcohol in his vehicle, and all 4 occupants in his car were extremely drunk. I bruised, broke, or fractured every bone in my body. I have metal in all 4 of my limbs, and I've had 15 surgeries as of right now, but they are talking about the 16th one. My mom was given the option, choose your daughter or your job. Well, as any mother would do, they choose their child over their job. My dad wasn't able to go to work because it was constant, take care of Leslie, take care of Leslie, take care of Leslie. And it was a 2-person job. My 13-year-old, well, he was 13 at the time, 13-year-old brother, at 13, his new day-to-day schedule was getting up, going to school, getting picked up from the bus stop, going straight to the hospital, seeing his sister laying in there, not being able to do anything, doing his homework, having dinner there, going home and doing it all over again. For 2 years, that was my brother's routine. The worst part about the crash is reliving it all over and over again. Sorry. Having the flashbacks of that night, knowing that the scars and metal is the memory I have of my cousin's wedding. Knowing that I don't remember simple things like dancing or eating cake at my cousin's wedding. I remember waking up to in a car covered in blood with strangers all around me.
My name is Xavier Jordan, and I am 22 years old. I'm a business major at Lincoln University, and I'm also a saxophone player. There was a night I was coming from Columbia, and I had just got finished with a gig up there. And I was coming down 54. I was almost near Jefferson City, and my car lost control. On Highway 54, there are bars, so I swerved into there, and my car jerked extremely hard, and I'm so glad that I had my seatbelt on, because if I didn't, I would have flew through the window easily. What I remember are like just glass being everywhere and hearing my car just go all over the road and hear it like screaming, and just me going into the median and my body jerking. The only injury that I had was a minor cut in my head from the glass, but that's about it, thankfully. I would say my life is my seatbelt, definitely, because if it wasn't for that, there was so much broken glass all over the place. The car looked completely totaled, so the seatbelt definitely saved my life.
Crashes, they're crashes. There's likely some preventable factor. They are not just wild happenings that just, oh, it's so sad. Yeah, it is kind of sad, but it can also be maddening when you know there's something that could have been done differently. And all we can do is try to talk about it, try to educate, try to bring awareness to the idea. You know, if a mom just sits down with the 16 or 17-year-old and says, no, you're only going to have one person in the car with you at a time, it might upset the kid for a little bit. But if that decision or decisions like that breed a culture of safety among, you know, that kid, his friends, who knows? And if we've impacted those lives, prevented serious injury, then we've done our job.
I believe that people should definitely take responsibility about the way they drive. Speeding is one big thing, because, I mean, there are rules for a reason, and I believe everyone should follow them.
I don't want people to be like, oh, you poor thing. No, I want you to learn from what happened to me. It takes 2 seconds to call a taxi, and it takes 2 seconds to either change your life or change somebody else's life. So which 2 seconds do you want to choose?
You only have one life to live, and doing something as simple as putting your seatbelt on or not drinking and driving could make your one life that you have so much better. It could save it. It could change it completely. It's your life. You need to handle it with care because you only get one.
It's a simple thing, really. Wearing your seatbelt, switching off your phone, not driving when you are impaired. All we need is for people to start thinking of it as just that, as a simple necessity. But that starts with you and me. Now is the time. Let's make roadway safety part of the conversation in our families, in our offices, in our communities. That is how we will save lives. Are you ready?